Hello and welcome to an overview of GCSE English Literature at NPCAT. At NPCAT, we follow the AQA English Literature GCSE course. This year, it's a little bit different. Due to the lockdown and school closures, AQA have removed the anthology poetry element from the course. This means that students will not have to answer an exam question on the power and conflict poetry. Instead, students will still sit 2 exams. On paper 1, students will answer a question on their 19th century prose novel. Students will have either studied A Christmas Carol or Jekyll and Hyde. You must only answer on the novel you have studied. On section B, students will then answer a question on their modern text. Students will have studied An Inspector Calls or Blood Brothers, and again, you must only answer one question on the text that you have studied. On paper 2, you will now answer on your Shakespeare text. You will have either studied Romeo and Juliet or Macbeth, and again it is really important just to answer the question on the text that you have studied. And then the final section will be on unseen poetry. Here you will be given 2 poems and you will be required to answer 2 questions. So let's have a little look then at your Shakespeare text and your 19th century novel. When you get into the exam, it's really important that you don't panic and end up writing an answer on the wrong text. There will be lots and lots of questions to choose from because across the country, students will have studied lots of different texts compared to you. So the first thing you need to do when you get into the exam is find the contents page, find the text that you have studied, highlight it and find the page number that you need to go to in order to find the right question. The questions for the 19th century novel and Shakespeare texts look very similar. In each case, you will be given an extract from the text and a question which will then focus on the extract and also require you to think about the rest of the text. For each question, you must answer both bullet points. One bullet point will focus on the extract, whilst the second bullet point will require you to think about the text as a whole. There are 30 marks available for this question, plus 4 marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar. It is really important that you make a good impression on the examiner by spelling Shakespeare correctly, by spelling character names correctly and using capital letters. Those 4 marks could make the difference between you getting a grade 3 or a grade 4. In the exam, it's really important to identify which part of the text the extract comes from. Is it from the beginning, the middle, or the end? Once you've identified which section of the text the extract is from, you can then use your prior knowledge to work out what might be happening in this extract. Don't panic if it's an extract that you have not studied in detail in lesson. You will still be able to use your knowledge of the characters and of the text to unpick and analyse the extract. Ask yourself what sort of presentation you would be expecting to see of the character at this moment in the text. For example, we know that Juliet at the beginning of the play is obedient and submissive, whereas by the end of the play she's determined and assertive, and we can use this prior knowledge to zoom in and unlock the extract that is being used in the exam. As you read through, start to look for any language or imagery or structural devices which will give you an insight into the character or theme that you've been. Some top tips for exam success. Read the information that is given to you in front of the extract to establish where in the text the extract comes from. Pay attention to the wording of the question. Look at the supporting bullet points and use keywords from the question to help keep your answer focused. As soon as you get into the exam and you've read the question, jot down your initial thoughts in response to the second bullet point. Which character or theme is it asking you about? Can you remember any other quotations from the rest of the play or text that would be helpful? And make a note of these now so that you don't forget them later on in the exam. Read the extract carefully at least once, annotate it, use your highlighter, and select at least 3 really powerful quotations that you will be able to use in your answer. For the second bullet point, this is where you'll be writing about the rest of the play, and it's really important to try and use some evidence from the rest of the text to support your points. However, lots of students can panic because they think, oh, I can't remember the right quotation to use. If you know the exact words of a quotation, that's brilliant. Use the quotation. If you think you know the words but you aren't sure, have a go. And if you can't remember the words or the quotation, just refer to that part of the text. For example, at the beginning of the play, Romeo is lovesick and naive. This would still count as a reference. Look for opportunities to make key points and use those key quotations that you've been revising. Just make sure that you link it to the key focus of the question. Finally, make sure you include some reference to the social context and writer's purpose. So think about what was going on at the time, what was Shakespeare's point in writing this play. For social context for Romeo and Juliet, some key ideas to remember. Remember that the play is set in the Elizabethan era. This was a time when it was a patriarchal society. Society was ruled by men, which is really important when we look at the relationship between Julia and her father. Shakespeare deals with timeless, universal ideas within the play. Ideas such as love, hate and family honour. And this is why Romeo and Juliet continues to be such a popular play today, because audiences can still relate to these ideas. For those of you looking for a lovely grade 9 phrase, you could write about the fact it's a story of pure and beautiful love set against the backdrop of a relentless and unremitting tragedy. And remember that key quotation, star-crossed lovers. The audience knows right from the outset of the play that Romeo and Juliet are doomed. We know they will die. We know that this is a play that won't end well, and as a result of that, we are hooked right from the prologue. Some key points and key words which you might want to use when writing about Romeo and Juliet. Remember that this is a play which deals with male aggression. It deals with the idea of gender roles, how men and women are supposed to behave. It deals with ideas of religion and fate, conflict, honour, family, love and hate, and respect. The play focuses on the romantic love between Romeo and Juliet, specifically that intense passion the characters have for one another. For Romeo and Juliet, their love is violent and overpowering, and it supersedes all their other values, loyalties, and emotions. Now we'll move on to look at your 19th century novel, A Christmas Carol. Some key points about the context of Christmas Carol. Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol in the 19th century, and it's set in the Victorian era. Remember that this was a time just after the Industrial Revolution, where thousands of people had flocked to the cities to work in the factories. And there was a huge disparity or gap between the rich and the poor. The rich were very, very rich, whilst the poor were very, very poor. Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol in order to convey a stark political message. It's what we call a morality tale. Dickens wanted his readers to take notice of the problems and suffering within society. He wanted his readers to become more charitable, kind and forgiving, and to look after the most vulnerable within society. His aim was to haunt the reader pleasantly, whilst also conveying a serious message about the inequality within society. The novel charts the protagonist Scrooge's journey to redemption. In Scrooge, Dickens creates a character who is so awful and so mean and kind and cruel. And his point in doing this is to suggest that if even the worst character, Scrooge, can change for the better, then we all can. He uses incredibly emotive language and imagery, and the reason that Dickens does this is to really tug at the heartstrings of his readers. He wanted to have an emotional impact on his readers because he wanted his text to yield profound social consequences. He wanted a more equal society. Each of the characters within the novel helps Scrooge on his journey to redemption, and they all help to change him from his state as a misanthropic miser at the beginning of the novel to a benevolent, kind benefactor.
We will now have a look at revising your modern text Blood Brothers. For your modern text, you will be given a choice of 2 questions in the exam. You will have 45 minutes to select and complete one of these questions. You must only answer one of the questions that is available. Read them carefully, looking at the key words before you make your decision. Some key tips here for Blood Brothers. It is really important to use key words from the question, and you must keep referring to them throughout your response to show the examiner you understand the question. It is also important to use quotations to support any points that you make about the play. If you know the exact words, use them. If you are a little bit unsure, still write the quotation down anyway. If you are not sure of any quotations, then refer to key points in the play. A top tip here: make sure you write down any key quotations at the beginning of your exam. It will take the pressure off later on when you are struggling to think of quotes to support your key points. Remember to start your essay with an introduction. You have been preparing Grade 9 introductions in class. Memorise this and adapt it to suit the question. End your essay with a conclusion that brings your answer together. If possible, try to develop multiple interpretations of quotations. Use words like "this might suggest" or "perhaps." This will help to impress the examiner and give you extra marks in the exam. Willie Russell was concerned about the consequences of social inequality in Britain and the disparity caused by wealth and the class divide. He echoes his concerns through his main characters, Mickey and Edward, who show the clear differences between the social classes, even though they are twin brothers. Russell wanted to awaken his audience to the obvious class divide between the working class and the rich, and how the working class are exploited, prejudiced against, and the daily injustices that they face. This can be clearly seen through Mrs. Johnson, who represents the working classes, and how she is easily manipulated due to her lack of education by Mrs. Lyons to give up one of her children due to having the welfare onto her. Russell also portrays the theme of nature versus nurture through Mickey and Edward. He captivates his audience through the effects of opportunities given to one because of money and status. This is something that causes jealousy and resentment for Mickey, and ends up being the driving force between them. Some key staging techniques to consider for your response. The first technique is dramatic irony. This is when the audience knows more than the characters. For example, in the opening scene, we know the fate of the characters before they do. We watch them develop, unaware of their fate, and although they are unable to recognise signs of their downfall, we are. Another staging technique is the role of the narrator. Think about why he is important in the play. Russell creates a character of the narrator who acts a little like the Greek chorus from ancient tragedy, whose role is to explain some of the key action on stage. The narrator also involves the audience by asking them directly to judge what they see. He helps to make sure that the audience stay a little detached from the events of the play. He also helps them remember that this is a story. He reveals that the brothers die at the very start of the play, and from then on constantly reminds the audience of the twins' fate. He presents the themes of fate, destiny, and superstition throughout the play, but at the end he asks the audience to consider if it was social forces rather than fate that caused the tragedy. Another thing to remember is that the play is a tragedy and follows a tragic structure. Mickey is a tragic hero. This means he is a good character, but he has a fatal flaw. We watch his downfall because of his flaw. You need to consider what Mickey's hamartia is. Is it his social position, or is it his jealousy? Russell's final message. Remember, this is a didactic play, and that Russell is trying to teach his audience a message regarding the disparity between social classes. Throughout the play, Russell uses the narrator, who raises the idea of the curse on Mickey and Edward. However, this quotation reminds the audience that what is really important is the social inequality that led to Mickey's imprisonment and his emotional and mental decline following that. Maybe the inevitability of the twins' death is really a result of society being unfair, rather than a made-up superstition. We can still say that the play is relevant today when thinking about the clear divide in society that still exists. This just echoes that Russell's message is incredibly important and that we must act in order to change the injustices we face.
Finally, let's look at the last part of the English Literature exam, which is the unseen poetry element. In this part of the exam, students will be given 2 poems to read and analyse. These will be poems that they will not have studied in class. There are 2 questions in this section. In the first question, students will have 30 minutes to read and analyse a poem. Students must explore how the poet presents their feelings through the use of language, imagery and structure. In the second part of the exam, students will be given another poem to read. They will then be asked to compare the first unseen poem with the second unseen poem. This question is only worth 8 marks. Therefore, students should spend no longer than 15 minutes answering this question. In order to prepare for this part of the exam, students should still try to read as much poetry as possible in order to support the unseen element of this exam. Students can follow a very basic structure when answering this part of the exam, and then there is no need to write any more than 2 paragraphs. Finally, here are 3 top tips which will help you to be successful in your GCSE English Literature exam. Top tip number 1, learn your key quotations. Your teacher will have provided you with a bank of key quotations to learn and use in any exam. It's really important that you support your work in school by revising these key quotations at home. Create flashcards and test yourself regularly. Quotemaster is a really good free app that you can download to your phone, which helps you to remember key quotations. As well as remembering the quotation, make sure you understand why the quotation is important. Which themes does it link to? Which characters does it link to? And can you identify the AO2 methods that the author uses within the quotation? It's not enough to just simply remember your key quotations. You have to be able to do something with these quotations in the exam. It's really important to remember to use the peel structure. Make a point, Support your point with some evidence, a key quotation, and then really go to town explaining the effect of your key quotation. Remember to zoom in on the techniques and the words within the quotation and think about what the writer is trying to convey with the quotation and what effect it has on the reader. Try to use some really sophisticated words within your analysis. Remember that key word perhaps. That word perhaps will help you to develop multiple layers of interpretation of the quotation. And again, this will help you to really get the top grades in your literature exam. Top tip number 3, write and learn a grade 9 introduction. Often the hardest part of an exam can be getting started and putting pen to paper. One way around that is to pre-prepare a really impressive grade 9 standard introduction for every text that you've studied. This means that when you get into the exam, all you will need to do is remember your grade 9 introduction and begin your essay with that paragraph. Your teacher will support you to write a grade 9 introduction in your lessons. You will then need to use your flashcards and time at home to revise and learn your grade 9 introduction. As well as the extra support and intervention available in school, there are also a number of online revision materials that you can use to support your revision of English literature. Make sure that you are following us on Instagram, npcat_English, where we regularly post revision tips and ideas to support you as you prepare for your exams. In addition to this, you can find a wealth of online teaching and learning materials on our NPCAT website. Go to Education and select Online Teaching and Learning.
English revision at St Peter's. English Period 6 is on every Monday, where you will be taught by your English teachers, as well as small group intervention being provided. You have been provided with the first edition of a monthly revision newsletter, bespoke to your up-and-coming PPEs, testing you on Language Paper 2, Romeo and Juliet, and A Christmas Carol. Use the activities to help prepare for your exams. Our school has invested money in a number of revision guides to support you. Ensure you use these to help make flashcards or answer exam questions.